Taiwan must elect a new president today. Will that decision move the country closer to unification with China or further away? Or will it maintain the status quo all parties say they want? But first, why does Communist China threaten democratic Taiwan? In China, the Communists once fought a war to unseat the Kuomintang KMT, or Chinese nationalists. That China was the Republic of China, ROC, and the Civil War lasted from 1945 to 1949. By the end, the KMT or the ROC were overthrown and fled to Taiwan. Despite this history, the opposition KMT today urges the strongest China ties of all Taiwan's political parties.
The KMT has, of course, historically been anti-communist, and then they shifted to a much more China-friendly position. This current position reflects the fact that they believe that they are part of one larger Chinese entity.
What binds the KMT and the CCP is a belief that both sides of the Taiwan Strait are one China. What separates them is who governs. Beijing insists it's the People's Republic of China. This is its one China principle. The KMT says it's the ROC government. After a non-official meeting in 1992, both sides agreed to disagree, enabling relations between them. This verbal-only agreement is the 1992 consensus. In conjunction with that, Beijing uses one country, two systems, the Hong Kong model, when referring to Taiwan. Meanwhile, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, in power for 8 years under Tsai Ing-wen, insists both sides of the Taiwan Strait are not subordinate to each other. The DPP rejects any form of the 92 consensus or one country, two systems. They say both are the same thing, Taiwan agreeing to unification. In response, Beijing refuses dialogue with the DPP and labels them pro-independence separatists, where declaring independence is a red line that can provoke war. Yet the DPP says Taiwan is already de facto independent, so no formal declaration is needed. It's nearly 30 years since Taiwan held its first presidential election in 1996, at the time crowning a rapid economic rise. Today, if an opposition party wins, it will be the fourth change of power in Taiwan's democratic history. In this election, DPP candidate and current Vice President Lai Ching-te has proposed a four-pillar peace plan to manage China. It consists of deterrence, economic diversification, democratic partnerships, and principled pragmatic China relations.
The first two priorities is really concerning about Taiwan's own effort to strengthening its capabilities and resilience in both the defense front and economic front. And thirdly, talk about international partnership. Last but not least, talk about China. It's very clear that the majority of the world's trade goes through Taiwan Strait, so it's an international problem. It's not for the China to dictate.
Meanwhile, the KMT is shifting policy to remain relevant to an electorate where more than 60% identify as Taiwanese only, rather than both Taiwanese and Chinese, or Chinese only.
KMT learned from the past that they have to stand for Taiwan. They have to stand stronger for Taiwan. So they put deterrence policy at the very beginning of the 3D policy. The KMT believe only if both sides of Taiwan Strait can talk to each other, then they can increase the mutual understanding and at the same time decrease the tension. There's no way at this moment, there's no reason to believe Hou Yu-ih will immediately pursuing unification in the short time.
The KMT says it also rejects one country, two systems, recognizing its failure to offer Hong Kong its autonomy. The third party, the Taiwan People's Party, also rejects one country, two systems, along with the stances of the two main parties. It wants to warm up ties with China while maintaining autonomy. TPP candidate and former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je also proposes deterrence along with what he calls the five mutuals: mutual acknowledgement, understanding, respect, cooperation, and absolution.
A lot of this comes down on really a matter of trust. How much trust the different parties have in Beijing. If we look at Beijing's position on Hong Kong, whether it's the Sino-British Joint Declaration or the Basic Law, if you look at Beijing's position on the South China Sea, its promises and actually a treaty to respect Ukraine's sovereignty, Beijing have reneged on all these.
What Xi Jinping has promised Taiwan has not been mutual reciprocity, but it has been constant and unequivocal.
祖国统一是历史必然，两岸同胞要携手同心，共享民族复兴的伟大荣光。
Today, voters must determine how best to manage China at a time when Beijing is tightening the screws on democracy, freedom, and Taiwan's very existence.